If you're planning the Great Loop, there's one decision that can either save your retirement or drain it dry before you even leave the marina. And it isn't the route, it isn't the timing, it's the boat. Most people spend months comparing prices. Very few spend that same amount of time comparing reliability. And that gap is exactly where the trouble starts. Every year, a few hundred boats set out to do America's Great Loop, that 6,000-mile ring around the eastern half of the country. And every year, a few of them end up parked at a dock in South Carolina with a blown engine, a repair bill north of $20,000, and a captain who's just done. Not because they ran out of money, because they picked the wrong boat. Before we get into the ranking, here's the thing nobody tells you when you start shopping. Reliable doesn't mean expensive. It doesn't mean new. Most of the time, it just means simple one good engine, a hull shape that's been proven for decades, and a previous owner who actually did the maintenance instead of just polishing the deck for the sale photos. Keep that in mind, because it's going to matter for almost every boat on this list. So today, we're ranking the 7 boats that experienced loopers tend to trust the most. Fair warning, I know a few people are going to disagree with where I put number 1. Let's get into it. Number 7 is the Mainship 390 Trawler. It won't win any beauty contests, and the interior on an older model looks a little dated. But it's got a single Yanmar diesel that just refuses to quit, and parts you can actually find without waiting 3 weeks for a shipment somewhere on the Illinois River. That matters more than teak trim ever will. Watch the flybridge clearance under some of the lower fixed bridges, though that's the one real headache with this boat. Number 6 is the Albin 43 Trawler, and this next one might be the most underrated boat on the entire list. Full displacement hull. A draft around 3.5 feet, which opens up anchorages a lot of bigger boats can't touch. It's not fast, cruising in the 7 to 8 knot range for most, and it was never supposed to be fast. That's kind of the whole point. Nobody's racing anyone on this trip. Spend an afternoon on one in a little chop, and you'll notice it right away. It just sits steady the way boats twice its price sometimes don't. Here's what surprised me about this one. Albin's changed hands as a company more than once over the years, so parts support depends heavily on which era of hull you're buying. Some years are easy, some take a bit of digging, and a good broker who knows the model's history. Do your homework first. But mechanically, this is one of the most proven small trawlers still on the water today. Now, if you think that one's capable, wait until you see what almost got left off this list entirely. Number 5 is the Beneteau Swift Trawler 44. And I actually debated putting this one in at all. It's got twin diesels in most configurations, which means twice the maintenance and a noticeably higher fuel bill than anything we've talked about so far. For a purist, that's already a deal breaker, and the systems on board are more complex than a die-hard trawler guy would ever want. More electronics, more wiring, more things that eventually need attention. What matters more is what's on the inside. The layout feels less like a boat cabin and more like a small condo, with more headroom and a bigger galley than most trawlers this size can offer. And the hull itself is genuinely well built for something mass-produced. It can also get up on plane and cover real distance in a hurry if weather's closing in on Lake Michigan, which a lot of the boats on this list simply can't do. Depending on how you like to cruise, that trade-off is either exactly worth it, or it isn't for you at all. Quick pattern I want to point out here, because it applies to almost every boat on this list, not just this one. The buyers who end up stranded usually aren't the ones who bought an unreliable model. They're the ones who skipped the survey or ignored engine hours that were higher than they should have been for the asking price. A great boat with a neglected engine is still a bad buy. Keep that in your head as we go through the rest of this. Number 4 is the DeFever 44. Older loopers know this name well. Newer ones are just discovering it. Arthur DeFever built his reputation designing full displacement hulls for exactly this kind of trip. Long stretches, unpredictable water, weeks between proper boatyards. The reason it made this list isn't glamorous. It's the engine room. Spacious, well laid out, easy to work in at 2 in the morning when something needs attention, and you're nowhere near a mechanic. But most of these hulls are from the 80s or 90s now. That means older wiring, older systems, and a real risk if the previous owner kept it clean without actually maintaining it underneath. Buy from someone who can prove the maintenance record with receipts, not just someone who can prove it's shiny in the listing photos. Number 3, and I know this pick is going to start an argument in the comments, the Kadey-Krogen 42, a single engine. no redundancy. On paper, that sounds risky for a 6,000-mile trip through open lakes and unfamiliar rivers. But among long-distance cruisers, you'll hear the same thing over and over. A well-maintained single diesel with clean fuel filtration is about as close to bulletproof as boating gets. Simplicity is the safety feature here, not a weakness. There's less on board to break, and less that ever actually does. What you give up is speed and interior space. This isn't a boat for someone trying to cover 400 miles a day. It's a boat for someone who wants to pull into the next marina relaxed instead of rattled. From what I've seen, that trade quietly wins over a lot of skeptics after the first big open water crossing convinces them. Number 2 is the Grand Banks 42 Classic, a boat that's widely regarded as having defined what trawler means to an entire generation of boaters. Let's get the bad news out of the way first. Maintenance on an older hull isn't cheap. Teak needs constant attention, and a lot of these boats are pushing 40 years old now. So budget honestly, not optimistically. Systems on a hull that age usually need updating before you trust it for 6,000 miles of running. Now the good news. The build quality has held up for decades, and there's something to be said for a design that's been proven on the water this long, through weather and wear, that would have retired a lesser hull years ago. It's not trendy, it's trusted. And on a trip like the Loop, trusted wins more often than trendy does. Which brings us to number 1. Picture this for a second. You're crossing open water on Lake Michigan, and the forecast that looked fine that morning has quietly gotten worse. The wind picks up, the waves start building faster than you expected, and the horizon disappears behind grey. That's the exact moment people understand why they paid extra for a Nordhavn. The Nordhavn 46 wasn't designed for coastal cruising. It was designed to cross oceans. So a 6,000-mile loop around the eastern half of the country? That's basically a warm-up lap for this boat. Single lugger diesel, full displacement hull, and build quality that shows in every hatch and every weld, right down to details most buyers never even notice, until something goes wrong on a lesser boat and they wish they'd paid attention. It's slower than most of the boats on this list, and it costs more to buy and more to maintain. If you want speed or a flashy interior, this isn't your boat. But if my family were waiting for me on the other side of that crossing, this is the boat I'd want under my feet. So, that's the list. 7 boats, 7 completely different personalities, and honestly, no single right answer. Here's my real question for you. You get 1 set of keys, but there are plenty of happy loopers running that Mainship at number 7 who wouldn't trade it for anything twice the price. 1 boat, 1 chance to do this right. Which one are you taking? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.